To what Rigathi Gachagua said about the tour of President William Ruto to the mountain.
Si umesikia rais anakuja hapa? Anakuja anakuja kufanya nini? Sisi tunataka kumwambia William Ruto, wewe unakuja hapa Mlima Kenya, ukuwe mtu ya kuongea ukweli. Project zile zote ziko hapa katika mlima ni zile zilianzishwa na Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Hakuna project hata moja yako. Kwa hivyo wewe ukija hapa useme project umefanya ni gani. Zile project ziko ni za Uhuru Kenyatta, umekataa kumaliza. Lakini usikuje kudanganya watu ya Mlima Kenya.
Nani alipeleka Rigathi nyumbani? Nani ameharibu uchumi ya Kenya? Ni nani ataenda nyumbani 2027? Wale wanasema Ruto must go. Ruto must go.
Sasa ikanifikia mimi.
Okay, so that is the president with the member of parliament for Kajiado North, Mheshimiwa Ngogoyo. And so you were saying that the president has done nothing in Mount Kenya region, but also the president spoke about his former deputy and said that he never defended projects, but also demanded some 10 billion shillings so that he could defend him or mobilize for him in the mountain.
Sasa ikanifikia mimi. Mimi sasa. Oh, unajua, mimi naweza kukufanya one-term president. Usipofanya hii, usipofanya hii, usipofanya hii, nahitaji bilioni 10. Wewe unajua bilioni 10, Bwana Waweru?
Labda zilikuwa za nini rais? Bilioni
10 ndio niende niongee na watu ya mlimani, you know, ni kupangie siasa, sijui nifanye nini. Mimi nikaona hapa nikamwambia I will not do it. Wacha nimalize. So nikamwambia hii haiwezekani.
Of course, he was laying the foundation, distancing himself from the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, that he had nothing to do with it. It is the members of parliament who had beef with the former deputy president and eventually saw the impeachment through. Mheshimiwa Koech, why did the president find it so important to explain some of these questions, including such now, how do you call it? Is it an allegation? You see, it's the president saying it, 10 billion shillings. Like, who even fact-checks this? Who knows whether it's true or not?
First, listening to the president there, you feel his pain of the kind of person that he has picked. Actually, you play the two clips. You notice that the former deputy president is a very bitter man, extremely bitter. Bitter even for himself, for his own health. You fear for him when he speaks, because it's not what I will speak. I mean, it needs a lot of therapy for that gentleman to come back to who he was, because he's totally out of his element. I'll say this, Sam, the former deputy president, and the president did indicate that, first of all, he was rejected by all the members of parliament when it was put into a vote in Karen, when they were picking who was to be the deputy, who was to deputize him. Yep. He only got 5 votes out of the 27 that were cast. But against that, the president decided, no, let me have this gentleman as my deputy president. And I think the president is to blame, really, for having picked someone that he had not interacted with for long, and he really didn't understand him, and later only to realize the kind of a person he is. I will not put it past the former deputy president to have demanded for 10 billion. His appetite for money is huge. Okay?
How do you know that?
Because of other cases. I mean, he had cases before that he had, he had a corruption cases from Nyeri County, where his brothers
confirmed.
Yeah, where his brother served. All I'm saying is that they were not confirmed, but most of the cases point there was some money that was even frozen by our courts that were believed to have been proceeds of corruption. There are many cases from Bungoma.
Allow me to say something. Sorry, you sat here.
Allow me to say.
Just hold on.
Defended him. Yes.
So let to disrupt you. But you sat here and told me that President Uhuru Kenyatta was fighting the leaders in Kenya Kwanza, including Rigathi Gachagua then. Now you're saying the case was right.
No, I'm actually apologizing to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, because he was right. This is not at the context where, if you saw it that time, he sounded like a very genuine man. But now that he's been unmasked, you realize that, no, this man, there's a problem with him. Look, for instance, he is saying that the president is going to launch the projects that were initiated by the former president. But during his campaign, and I wish you can play the clips, He said that there was not a single project that Uhuru Kenyatta was launched. I attended so many campaign rallies in central Kenya. At all the rallies, our rallying call was that the people of Mount Kenya had been deprived by Uhuru Kenyatta of their right to development. And Rigathi Gachagua was brutal and lethal in that campaign against Uhuru Kenyatta. Now he's saying that the president is going to launch the projects he had said whenever initiated by Uhuru Kenyatta during the campaign.
So he's going against his word.
He's going against his word.
And you're going against your word.
No, I'm not going against my word. All I am saying is that I am apologizing to Uhuru Kenyatta, realizing the kind of a person Rigathi Gachagua is. I can tell you, Rigathi Gachagua is very risky for this nation today. And I'm happy that, some of the courts might not allow him to run, because if this is a kind and this is a temperature, this is a kind and this is the attitude of a gentleman who might rise, God forbid. Can you imagine he was just a heartbeat away from the presidency? This is a very toxic man. As he speaks about the projects that the president has launched in Mount Kenya, can Rigathi Gachagua show the people of the mountain one single project he has initiated himself? Just one single project, other than the venom that he, every weekend, it's now been reduced to at least a fortnight. It used to be every weekend, every Sunday, he was going to church, and now Lesapita said, no, you can't use the pulpit to insult. Otherwise, there's nothing. Let me tell you, Sam, and I've said it before, and I will continue saying, there are politicians, a new crop of politicians that I really admire in this country. The likes of, particularly from Mount Kenya, the likes of Gathoni, people who speak about policies. When you look at Gathoni speaking about coffee, and trying to make sure the prices of coffee is stabilized in Mount Kenya, you get happy as a young person, because that is the kind of person that you want.
Was saying
but there's nothing that Gachagua said. All
even
he was
on
doing
coffee, Gachagua was speaking the same.
He never walked the talk. I was with Rigathi Gachagua in Parliament. Look at the Hansard on the Bokibagendi, and I challenge you today. Rigathi Gachagua never, ever spoke in that house in Parliament.
And
all he did was to go to TV shows in Inoro and all these other stations, local vernacular stations. He is not a leader to take the country forward. People who would want...
You knew that
allow me
when you
to say
campaigned
that.
for him to be deputy president, didn't
I
you?
never campaigned for him to be deputy president.
He defended him on this.
I campaigned on the Bokibagendi. I allowed you to speak. Allow me to speak.
Just carry on.
Okay? And a lot of what Kibagendi actually spoke about was totally nauseating. I didn't like anything of what he said. In fact, you should have put him to check when he said that the president disbanded a police unit that was...
he said that.
Yes. But the president did that when he joined in, when he came into power. He said it existed before in Nairobi area. And when he was sworn in, he said, no, I will disband this unit that was domiciled in Nairobi area. Let me go back to former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Okay? If you go to the Hansard on the Bokibagendi, you will realize that the former Deputy President never spoke about the tea issues of Mount Kenya, never spoke about milk prices in Mount Kenya, never spoke about guaranteed minimum returns. In fact, the most vocal at that time was Honorable Moses Kuria and the likes of Gathoni, who were with me in last Parliament.
So did that make him a bad deputy president or a good deputy president for not speaking about certain issues?
I will tell you something about the character of Rigathi Gachagua. He is brutal with words, exceptionally brutal with words, but a very dishonest fellow and a very bitter person.
So that time...
He is very toxic for the country. Because...
No, you said that already.
Let me say this as I conclude. What the president is going to do in the mountain, and let us give it to the president.
No, I'm not taking the mic away. I just wanted to reference here, because the president, when he was naming his running mate, he said that he's an astute debater with prodigious persuasive ability. I don't know what prodigious means. A fantastic grassroots mobilizer, a disciplined and tireless political operator, a successful elected politician and businessman, a principled politician of tremendous resilience and steely resolve, a fearless fighter for the right causes, and an indefatigable champion of the betrayed, persecuted, downtrodden, the despised, the ignored, and the marginalized. A living example of a true hustler who rose from the hardship of the aftermath of our freedom struggle to the pinnacle of professional, business, and political success. Was this a sales pitch of the reality?
It was a sales pitch, I would say.
So the president misled the country?
No. The president did not mislead the country. He had not observed the character of Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua is like a chameleon. he changes. And he really sings your tune when he's up to something. I can tell you that gentleman, even to himself, even the people of the mountain today, for as much as, you know, they show up when he comes for a function, they really like him and they cheer him. If they were asked today to pick Rigathi Gachagua as a president, I can tell you, they will not pick him because they know the kind of a person Rigathi Gachagua is. So for all these things that he's saying about the president and all other things, I mean, it's given to him that he's been impeached, and it pains him that, you know, possibly the president might have played a role in his impeachment. And you know, the president yesterday was explained why he had nothing to do with the impeachment. So it pains Rigathi Gachagua, and you can see he had what role did the president?
He did not mobilize MPs.
He did not mobilize MPs.
He did not call anyone asking them to sign the signatures.
He didn't need to mobilize the MPs. Yeah, the president did indicate, yes.
He did not call anyone asking them to append their signatures.
I wouldn't know. I'm not the president, Sam. I wouldn't know. Okay. The president never called me.
At least that's true.
The president never called me.
Hey, gentlemen.
Allow me to finish as I conclude. Yes. Let me just tell you this. And let me talk about, you know, what the visit of the president, in 1 second, the visit of the president entails, so that for people to appreciate. We are all members of parliament. Yeah. The president, Mount Kenya, in terms of roads that were paid, the pending bills that were paid last week, about 60 billion to 70 billion that were paid to contractors for them to go back to site. Do you know Mount Kenya is taking 42 billion of that money? My county, Kericho County, where I come from, for instance, has an allocation of only 800 million.
800 million?
Yes.
And Kisii has 0.
Yeah, so even as we look at it, let us be very fair to the president. When he goes to the mountain to initiate projects, to make sure that the projects continue, to make sure that, for instance, in Kiambu, where Gadone comes from, the stabilization from coffee that was selling at 48 shillings, it's now selling at 101. Those are some of the things that we must love. All right.
Can I say something?
I really wish you could give me time, but let me allow my other colleagues to say something.